What was the question?
Who's got landmark?
Oh, yeah, we're on RPI.
Awesome, perfect. So all the stuff that Chip is going to show you is applicable to IPA as well. It's probably more powerful along with the HR application or the supply chain application or finance application. But it's definitely stuff you can start playing with. To that. All right, so Chip Cunningham, RPI consultant, senior technical consultant. Dan Ferruggio, security, a foremost expert in Lawson security, as well as procurement and mobile supply chain applications. Jeff House, senior developer primarily with HCM solutions, all the way from 4GL Design Studio, ESS modifications, configuration console, HTML5. So with that, I will hand it off to Chip, who's going to guide us through some of the exciting things that we could do with. No, I like to keep talking. You know,
you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that was a false intro. He's going to show us some of the exciting capabilities of what we can do in configuration consoles. It's definitely next generation, a lot more powerful than what you could do with the case tool set on the S3 side. And I'm sure you'll send out a copy of this so you don't have to scribble furiously notes of how to do all this stuff.
As Richard said, I'm Chip Cunningham, a senior consultant with RPI. I've been working with Lawson for 12 or 13 years and kind of do a little bit mix of everything. I've had some experience with configuration console implementations. I helped Jeremy and his folks go live with GHR out of Hershey. And he asked me to come up here and talk to you a little bit about configuration console and the kind of things you can do with it. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I think today we're going to talk a little bit about what configuration console is. Some of you, especially if you don't have it, you may not even know what it does. Richard touched on it in the prior session, because with Infor moved to the cloud, Infor moving to configuration, and so you're replacing the customizations with the configuration. We'll talk about a little bit about some of the fundamentals and about the specifics around what can and can't be customized or configured. We'll talk about how we can access the configuration console, what types of forms and stuff we can configure. And then at the end, like the last half of the presentation, I'll actually go through some configurations that that I've been asked to do before, and kind of walk you through those, and so you can see really kind of how easy it is with just a little bit of guidance. You guys can configure your application with the look and feel that you need, and then I'll go through some of the notes and some talk a little bit about some of the limitations and stuff. So I'll start off with what is configuration console. So configuration console is Lawson's tool or Infor's tool for a landmark to allow you to change the look and feel of screens, and basically make your application, your landmark application, fit what you need it to do and what you want it to look like. The main four things that you configure are applications. So you can configure like screens and menus and lists and all those applications that are in there. You can configure security. So landmark comes with a delivered security set. You can take that security set and modify it to fit your needs. We all know that as much as Lawson tries or Infor tries, it's difficult to be a one-size-fits-all. So everybody has those little nuances and little differences that especially with security, that need to be addressed. As Richard called it earlier, web services is a hidden gem.
Yeah.
So web services allow you to update and change your landmark data from using URL web calls. So you can develop web services with the configuration console.
Yes. I so wish that was available on the S3 side. But basically with landmark applications, any transaction that you can do in landmark you can build a web service over that to make that available from an external application, a standard SOAP web service. So that's like equivalent to what PeopleSoft has with People Tools.
And then finally, use the console for cache management. So what that means is you know some of the configurations are actually held in cache, and you manage that cache appropriately. So when it's held in cache, the application accesses it, and then every so often that cache is refreshed. And configuration console gives you the tools to refresh that cache on demand for some things.
I have a question on the security. With that, is that outside of Inform Security Services? Or are you going to touch on that? I don't want to jump if you're going to touch on that. I'm just kind of curious how that differs from that.
So, Inform Security Services is kind of the overarching way that you administrate security. You still actually build your security in LSF, and you build your security in Landmark. And ISS sits kind of over the top and allows you to assign those to users. ISS is really kind of a user administration tool. It's not really the security building tool. You build your security in each instance.
So like with ISS, ISS becomes the thing used to maintain user accounts. You create a user, assign a role to a user. But what about building a new role or changing which classes are assigned a role? ISS doesn't do that. So that's still done on the S3 side. That's still done in Lawson Security Administrator. And then on the Landmark side, it's configuration console.
Also in ISS, there's the new user wizard. There's an extra Landmark page now in ISS. So when you're creating your user, adding it, there's another page, another step in there to create your Landmark security, or to add it.
The important thing to note about Configuration Console is Configuration Console changes apply to all the users in the Landmark system. That's different from personalizations. There's kind of two layers of configuration that you can do. You can do a all system layer, which is kind of the config console, and then you can do personalizations. And what personalizations are is you as a user can go in and you can delete things from your own menu. You can move things around like you want them to see. You want to see them, which is different from kind of what we're talking about here. And I'll show you later how that's managed. One of the main things to note is config console is actually kind of the user interface to generate LPL. And what LPL is Lawson pattern language. I'm sure that everybody's heard about it. It's Lawson's or Infor's proprietary programming language. It's built on top of the Java architecture. It's what all the Landmark applications are built in. Configuration console is kind of the GUI to build that LPL. All the LPL code is actually stored in the database, which is kind of different. It's not like in files outside. When you run an application, it's actually going to the database to run that LPL code. So one of the unique things about it is that it can be queried. So if you want to see like all the security in your system, you can actually go. There's a table in Landmark where you can go and you can query that table and you can find what you can actually query what your security is. You can use ISD spreadsheet designer to dump all that security out. It's all held in the database. And then I wanted to note some configurations are cache. Like one of the biggest kind of pains that you'll see is when you change security, you'll have to wait like 15 minutes for security to refresh because it's held in cache, and the interval, the default interval is 15 minutes. You can change that on your system, but it has performance issues, and then you can manually update the cache from config console. So access to the console is determined by Lawson delivered roles. Just to note, anything with an _ST is underscore standard role is a role that Lawson delivers for you. This one is too, even though it doesn't have ST. So for the different kinds of configurations, you need to have different roles. And basically, these are the roles. And Lawson has Inforce delivered these, so it's not something you have to set. You don't have to set up the security. You literally just go in there and give whatever user, So if I wanted to give somebody the ability to do application configuration, you would give them the global UI config access underscore ST role. So it's kind of that easy. And then I talked about earlier how the personalizations, configurations, and then base code is all managed. So in the database, you actually have a chunk of base LPL code. It's the standard Lawson delivered LPL. And on top of that, you add your configuration changes, and on top of that, you add your personalizations. So it's like a layered approach. So if you have a personalization configuration, you'll come down through here, and this will be kind of what wins. So, but you always default back to this. So, Infor does not let you change that base LPL. All of your customizations, it's a little different from Design Studio. You actually wrote the code in there, or GL. Here, the code always exists, and your configurations sit on top of that code. And then the only way to access the console is to do it via the rich client. You have to have those security roles, but you just open the rich client and then go to start and configure, and then basically you have your 4 selections: application, security, web services, and manage cache. You can't access it via the web. You can only access it through the rich client. So administrators, usually organizations give administrators a rich client allow them to do that. So what can I configure? Actually, kind of when you talk about applications, you're talking about data areas, data areas are like the overarching level of the system. You create business subjects, they're called, and that business subjects give you access to action requests. That's all done at the data area level. You can change menus. So, for example, there's something called a to-do menu in employee space. You can take things off and put things onto that menu according to what is needed by the business. Pages are like groups of lists and menus and searchable things. You can change those pages. You can move tabs around. You can delete tabs. You can hide tabs. You can make things searchable on pages. Lists. A list is basically kind of a report in Rich Client. So if you have a list and you want to hide the social security number from that list, you can do that through config console. Forms, like when you talk about forms in Landmark, we're talking about things that take in data and submit action requests or change data in the system. And you can make things required, take fields away. And actions, what actions are is they, like Landmark is like it's not really a transactional basis, it's based around actions. So you can, in config console, you make changes. So for example, if you run GHR, you do a new hire employee, and that's an action. So it kicks off a process in the background. You make changes to those actions using config console. And then business class relations. So everything in Landmark is divided into a business class, and there's only certain, like, it's object oriented. So you have one business class and one business class, and they can only talk to each other by the delivered Lawson code. So if you need them to talk to each other in another way, you set up a relation between the two business classes. For security, you can create and modify security roles, and create and modify security classes. You can also maintain actors and identities, and then assign roles. So you can actually maintain your actors through config console, and then like web services, you can create and modify web services, and you can clear cache and manage your cache. We already talked about that. So, does anybody have any questions about what it can do, or what? For the next couple slides, I'm actually going to show you, actual use cases to be able to. Any questions?
But Chip, this is a separate product, isn't it? This does not come delivered with Landmark.
Yes,
Is that correct?
It comes with it.
Oh, it does?
It's how you make changes.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, why don't I have it, Rob?
You probably don't have a security.
Hey, Rob, why don't I have it?
Probably didn't give it to him for a specific reason.
I don't think it exists if you just have the standalone IPA
Yes,
instance, right?
Yeah, it's in there.
Because I have
It's
never
just
seen
by
it.
default, you don't get access to it. Even the Lawson user, by default, does not have access to it. You have to specifically grant the access. And no, it's definitely in there for IPA. The other weird thing is that all the security classes operate at a data area level. So I found if you create a new IPA product line in Landmark, then that role that grants access to config console doesn't necessarily get updated to include your new data area. So you have to go back to edit that role or clone it to create a custom role, and then it shows you all the classes, and then next to each class is the data area that it's assigned to. So you can just add it.
Okay, so it exists in the Gen data area then, is that correct?
Is that true?
No, you have to be able to grant security through IPA. So
Right, okay.
it may live differently with IPA, but it's still there because you need to be able to grant security and give access to users.
All everything you do in configuration console is just within that product line or data area, right? Is that right? Yeah. So if you had like two IPA data areas, you go into one and do a bunch of configuration changes to the other.
Oh, okay, so specific to the data area.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Have you heard any improvement between the LS security, RM record, auto-populating to the actor record?
Improvement.
Well, the problem is, I'm the only one left at my company that even gets into IPA from an administrative point. So I don't go into the console to add actors as new employees come in. Even though when we created the 10x environment, we auto-populated somehow all the employees into
That's
actors.
what the ISS
Yeah,
security
federation.
services.
And I don't even think I had that set up.
So that's what it'll do, because that will,
What's
you create it once, it pushes it out to both your LSF and
But it doesn't do it after that? I can't remember.
It'll do it if you resend.
If you're federated, you have to sync. So you have one, but if you haven't synced.
But if you're manually creating user IDs, create it in the ISS tool, it pushes it out to both places simultaneously.
Right.
When you create.
I was told we had to go in there and add them. Not to look.
What version are you on?
10.5?
Yeah. So yeah, 10.05 is a little bit older Landmark version. The newer methodology is to use ISS for all user maintenance, and ISS pretty much makes sure that both environments are kept up to date, mostly in real time. But then you can also separately initiate a sync to sort of clean everything up. If you're doing like a LS load or something like using scripting or to using those tools to create users on the LSF side, it's like invisible to ISS. So at that point, you need to do a sync.
So we're done.
Yeah, that's totally it then. So before ISS, we ended up solving all of that with creating flows. Just basically building out flows that would compare compare the users list on both sides and fix it up.
I have a question. Do you need IPA for this or just landmark?
Landmark.
So it's
I mean, you need an application to configure.
So, because we're just going to
GHR.
10 now, we have it in test, but we're at S3, I mean, we're GL and accounts payable. So I was told landmark was part of our 10, but I don't think we have any apps in.
If you have process flows or IPA,
We don't.
yeah, then I mean, they probably told, I don't know. Yeah, if you're getting process flow or you're getting the financial and the budgeting or GHR or something, you need landmark. Otherwise, you really.
Okay. So if we have landmark, we would have this tool?
If you have an application.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Landmark is like LSF, right? It's the framework that runs the application. And then within Landmark, there are different applications available. IPA is one of them.
Okay.
But you can't use Configuration Console to change S3 forms. So it's not like you can use Configuration Console to change the look and feel of HR11. You still have to use Design Studio or some other method to change that form. So that they are separate. Configuration Console is Landmark exclusive.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, you wouldn't need it unless you have applications configured.
I think one takeaway that for anybody that's either like just using Landmark for IPA or not using Landmark at all is that at some point you might move to global HR. At some point you might move to the supply chain applications, contract management, strategic sourcing, or the financial applications, AP invoice automation, any of those things. Know that when you're implementing one of those applications, you have a really great tool set for customizing it, and take advantage of that when at the point that you're bringing up those applications and deploying them. So you're not stuck with the out of the box functionality. It's very easy to customize those applications.
Anything else? All right, so I just kind of with the time left, I just wanted to walk you through a couple examples of things that we're asked to do. Kind of show you just how easy it is to be able to customize, to be able to configure configuration console, and and how easy we can show you how to do it. So for the first example, we're talking about employee space, and the requirement is to delete the transition management link from the employee to do menu. One of the biggest things that we see is when we come in, we deliver this menu with 50 different things, and you guys use one of them or two of them, and you don't want your end users to have to scroll through to get all the way to the bottom one. So a lot of times you just ask us to hide a lot of these menu items, and it's like a really simple thing to do. So in order to do that, you're going to obviously navigate to the application configuration in Landmark, and then you'll get this screen, and it'll come up with for applications, kind of what do you want to change. So we want to change a menu because we know that that's a menu. And the way that we know that's a menu is because you can actually, who is familiar with Control-Shift-O and then LSF? So now we have Control-Shift left-click, that's what Landmark. So you can go to any form or any field. When I say any, that term loosely because it doesn't always work like that. But you can go to any form or any field, and you can Control-Shift left-click on it. It'll tell you the business class. It'll tell you the field. If it's on a form, it'll tell you the form. So that's how we can navigate around. There's not a lot of robust documentation around this. A lot of what I've learned is through experience. There's a configuration console user guide, which is a great start. It kind of tells you the ins and outs, but as far as searching for, the name, the security class that you want, or the form or field, or data or whatever you want, a lot of it is like a little bit of guesswork and a lot of luck and then control shift. Control shift. Anyway, so we're going to highlight the menus button, and then we're going to select new. So we want to add a menu. Kind of one of the weird things that I had a hard time getting used to is we're in, is you have to add things. We're actually adding a configuration. Remember I go back to that pyramid. So the bottom layer is the base LPL, the second layer is this configuration console. We're actually adding a configuration to the system. So it's weird, you do an add, you don't change anything. That's just me. So Control Shift left click provides you with that the name of the menu is LRC employee to do. So we want to click on that, click OK. And then it comes up with all of the links. So and these are like, these are just links right here. These mean there's another menu underneath it. So what we'll do is we'll find the list, the transition management link. You probably can't read that, but trust me, that's transition management. And you right click it and select delete, and then the link disappears. So it's that easy. Show it, but if you go back to the LRC employee menu to do menu, that transition management is gone. Another thing that we're commonly asked to do is when people go to GHR, that becomes their HR system of record. And so when that becomes your HR system of record, you want to be able to insert and enter all the information that you need in S3 from that side. So one of the first things that customers or clients usually ask us to do is add an auto deposit flag, so that when they're filling out, they're creating a new employee, they can just put that, put that information in there, and then through other mechanisms, interface it with S3. So our requirement is create a user field to hold the employee's auto deposit flag on the employee business class. Same thing, we're going to navigate to the configuration console. This is an application configuration. We did a Control Shift left click, so we're actually adding it to the employee business class. So we're going to open the business classes, drop down an employee, and then we're adding a field. So we click on field, and then click the new icon, and then this the create new configuration menu comes up, and we want to add a field. So God, that's not clear, but it says field right there, and it's highlighted. And you click OK. So when you create a new field, there's a lot of things you can do with the field. One of those is you can create states for the field. So basically what a state is a drop-down selection. So in the case of our example, the auto deposit, we want a yes or a no. So we add a yes and we add a no to those states, so that the only thing that the only two values that can be in that field are yes and no. So, on the Fields tab, I did the states first because so that when I come over here, I can pick the states from the initial value. But so on the Fields tab, you're going to create, you're going to add a label, a default label, which it'll default to auto deposit, whatever your label is. A field type, which is alpha, and then a size, which is 3. So, and that's self-explanatory. It's just a field size 3 that we're adding called auto deposit. And then we want all of our HR folks, every time they have to fill out, they go to that make changes on the employee to make sure that field is filled out, because we don't want it empty. And then because 99.9% of our employees do auto deposit, we want the initial value to be yes. We want to make people change it. So you fill out all those, and then you hit the save icon. And so now all we have is a field. So we've got a field that's attached to the employee business class. we want to actually put that field somewhere that's viewable, right? So we want to put it on the employee profile so that if I need to know if Jackie Dudas has auto deposit, I can come here and look at her employee profile and see that she has auto deposit. So that's pretty simple too. We want to know what the name of the form is, so we're going to Control-Shift left-click on the form and come up with that the form is actually LRC detail. That'll give us the idea of where in Configuration Console we can make that change. We come to navigate again to Application Configuration, expand the business classes, and we want to expand forms because that's what it is, right? So it's a form. There's already a configuration here. No, it's not. So we're going to add a new configuration, and it's going to be business class employee form LRC detail. And then what we get is this. So this is it's basically, it takes a little while to get used to, but it's an outline of the form. So it's got headers, it's got the fields that are in there. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory to figure out, but it takes a little getting used to how things display once you put them in there, because everything is indented and it's an outline, so you can close tabs and hide tabs and all kinds of stuff. So we know that we want to put it under the personal information header because that's what our requirement was. So we really kind of have to look through here for the what might be the personal information header. Well, it happens to say personal information, so we know that's it. So we find that header, we select the new button under that header and choose the user field. So choose user field. So what will happen is this little thing will come up. It says no name. You have to actually fill out everything in here for it to populate. So new user field, and then now we have to fill out this form. So we have to find the user field we created, which is auto deposit. We can change the alignment up and down, left and right. The label will actually default to what you put on the user field. So if you want to change it, you can, but the idea is that you put a label on the user field that you want to use. You can make it different colors, you can fold it out, you can do all kinds of stuff. We want to make it required, and then we want to make the initial value yes.
Is that a conditional at the bottom? So you can make it conditional, so if it was no, it'd be red, if it was yes, it'd be green?
I don't know if you can do that with label color or not. I think that's just for the value. So you can actually look at the value of other things to determine what you want to put in there.
Okay.
That's a little, that really takes some playing around. I mean, that's one of those things that it's, you can do a lot of stuff with this, but it's not documented what you can do with it. So you really got to play around and figure out what you're trying to do. It's a lot like Design Studio in that effect. I mean, you can do tons of stuff with Design Studio. You have all of JavaScript to do with Design Studio, but you have to figure it out. So, but Jeremy can probably tell you there's all kinds of nonsense that he's done on his system with it. So.
Yeah, you can create user fields that just are on the business class just to provide a condition, but maybe it's a combined field of 2 or 3 other fields that you're looking at, just so that you can then later show or hide something else down the road. And yeah, there's a lot of monkeying around you can do to get a desired result.
So the rule is very specific. Like business classes can only talk to each other in ways that are kind of imports set out. So you have to find these end arounds where you can, where you have an employee, you have a value in the employee that business class that you maybe want to work assigned business class. So you have to find these ways to get around the rigid structure that is kind of the object-oriented approach. So the end result of that is we have the auto deposit field on there. One of the things is like placement. So you can actually, what I do is I just place the thing at the top. So you can see right here, it's auto deposit's right under the header. And if you look here, auto deposit is actually halfway down. So once you actually get the field on there, you can move it up and down. You can click it, move it up and down with your mouse, and put it wherever you want to. It's just a little tricky to work with this thing. You know, it's not that tricky, but it's one of those things where you put something on the screen, and then you go back, you put something in the outline, you go back to the screen, you're like, you know, how did it end up in the upper left hand corner? I wanted it down in the right hand corner. So for that last example, like I kind of only talked about putting it on the form, but you want to be able to populate, you know, auto deposit in every interaction with the system, not just on the form. So you have to consider other things like action requests. How are you, if you add a field to a form and a field to the business class, how does it initially get populated when the new hire action occurs? So those are all considerations that you have to take. You have to, in every interaction with the system, you want to make sure that field is taken care of at somewhere along the way. Security, does the field need to be secured? Other forms, so it makes sense to put it on the employee profile. Does it make sense to put it on the employee listing? Under resources, where does it make sense to put that field? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about security and kind of show you how to make a change to security. So roles, I think we talked about roles are defined at the gen level. They're for the whole system. Security classes are defined at the application level. So for each application, there's a set of security classes for that application that roll up into a role that's defined in gen. One of the most important things is that you can go without out of the box security. Like they deliver in-core security for Landmark, completely built. You don't have to make any changes. You can give it out as delivered. Are you going to do that? No. You're going to want to hide pay rate. You're going to want to hide, social security number for certain people. You want to hide the pay rate of some HR people from other HR people. Those are those little requirements that each organization has. And then all those roles are delivered with the _ST. So every time you do a application upgrade, you're gonna any _ST role that's delivered with the system is going to be updated with the new code. So it's a good idea not to use _ST. And in fact, I think you can't even make a security class with _ST, or you can't make changes to a security class that's delivered by Lawson. So one of the biggest ones every organization, the first thing they worry about is, I don't want Bob seeing Bill's pay rate. So the requirements, we're going to remove the pay rate from the GHR employee inquire access _ST security class. I could probably sit here for the next 45 minutes and tell you how I came to that security class. That pay rate was in that security class, but I'll tell you, it's not one of those things where you look at it and you go, that's the security class. You have to use all those tools. You have to use ISD. You have to use you have to query the database. You have to Control-Shift left-click and look around and make sure the field is named the same. It's not documented that that the pay rate is actually in the inquire access _ST. So that's where your experience comes in. So one of the things you find the business class with Control-Shift left-click. This is all I just talked about. So one of the things to remember is just like LSF, greater access wins. So I make the change in that security class, and you have another security class with pay rate in it, you're still going to see pay rate. So,
Is there an equivalent to like what's in Lawson Security where you like a report that will show like what security class will give you what, like not tables in this case, but business class? Like, you know what I mean? Like to sort of expand out or blow up the security and tell you like what you get from what?
No, not directly. And it's a little different because of the keywords they use. Like in LSF, when you run that user set level report, you have access to this form and these fields and that, or that action. When you run the same report in, or you try to attempt to do that in Landmark, you get a LPL. So an LPL is not like, we try to write a program that would parse LPL to give us something like that. And because of the way LPL is worded, like the syntax, it's like you can have all except pay rate or including pay rate, or there's so many different ways to say the same thing in LPL that it's very hard to.
You can't parse it out.
Yeah, yeah, you can't. It's not. I mean, you could probably get like 85, 90%, but there's still going to be that last 15%. So what I usually do is I usually dump it out in IST and I just literally do a search for pay rate and hope that it hits. And then sometimes you actually have to go into a bunch of security classes that are assigned to a role and just look at them and try to figure out what you're giving security to. So.
For you on that Control Shift left click, out of curiosity, can you do that for a non-landmark application?
Darn it. All right. It's Control Shift O in LSF. Control Shift left click in Landmark. Smart Office, I don't know.
Enable field help in Smart Office, I think it tells you.
That's 3. So in order to change the security class, you're going to navigate the config console. And security, and then drop down on security classes, and you're going to select this GHR and inquire access underscore ST. And you're going to click copy. So you want to copy this security class to a new security class. Like I said earlier, you actually can't make changes to those underscore ST roles. And even if you could, they would get wiped out with your next CU. So you want to create a new one. And I just call it underscore test, but you call it underscore, what is it, Penn State or whatever, where you guys are. So it's just it's anything but the underscore ST. So you select the new security class that you've created, locate the business class, the employee business class, find the field, and then select new icons. We're gonna put a new rule on a field. The field we want to put the rule on is pay rate. We're gonna make it not accessible, and it's got a qualifier. There's I think the way that auditing works in Landmark. You can actually look at it in the past, now, and in future. So usually you don't want to give pay rate access to any of those times, and then we want to do it for all actions, which is inquire, delete, change, add, any of those actions, and then all right. So then we select save button, and so we've modified a security class. Obviously the next steps, and we're kind of out of time, but the next steps are you got to go make a copy of your role, remove the security class, the underscore ST security class from that role, and then replace it with this underscore test role. Like I said earlier, the default cache refresh is 15 minutes for security. It's really a pain when you're trying to test things. You can change it. Change the Hershey down to 2 minutes. You only want to do that on your test environment because you obviously don't want your landmark to continue updating cache.
Is there a way to just force one, like while you're testing? You don't want it always running in 2 minutes, but while you're testing, you can just force it. Like,
Not with security. So with security, it runs off that timer. So and the lowest they suggest to set it is 2 minutes. So that's what we got at our issues. That's only the test side. The production side, you usually leave it at 15.
as you're testing, you gotta wait 2 minutes.
Yeah.
For each change. See if it made a change. Made a back change it. Wait 2 more minutes.
Well, depending on where you are in the refresh cycle.
Yeah, actually,
you might only have to wait 15 seconds.
It could be it could be 1 second.
Yeah, refresh. I mean, most of the times when I'm in making changes or doing anything or testing anything, I mean the 2 minute, like sometimes I hit it and I do it again and it still behaved as before, but then I go right back and it's already refreshed at that point.
It's just one of those little nuances. Like it doesn't have that refresh cache.
Yeah.
Another key is when you're making security changes, you want to test with all the roles that the user is going to have. It's like I said, you may have access to pay rate in one role and not access to pay rate in the other role, and the access to pay rate wins because it's the greater access wins. And then we want to assign the security class to a non-standard role, which means you want to create it. I just wanted to add a couple additional notes. Most configurations do upgrade. But testing is needed after the upgrade. It's very important that if you make configuration changes in Landmark that you document them. It'll help your testing. There's after you do a CU and you go into the configuration console, usually it tells you that, like a little red X or something that says, "Hey, this has been upgraded. You got to make a change." And you can just refresh and it works. But you really need to make sure you document the configurations. After a CU, you can go back and check them because it can go away. Configuration console is powerful, but it has its limitations. Kind of what Jeremy alluded to, with the fact that when you have to kind of do an end around sometimes to get it to do what you want it to do. It's not. You can't just say, "Hey, I want to look at this business class and I want this, I want this to update this other business class." You actually have to kind of do an end around and do some weird stuff. And so it's all about like how much experience you have. Once you start to get experience and start to be able to make those changes, they become easier. And then finally, modifying base LPL code is not supported in Landmark. You can actually go and modify that LPL code, but it's not supported. So you have to use configuration console to make changes to your application. That's it. Is there any questions? Of course not.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
I'll ask this to Jeremy first. Are you guys using global HR by any?
Yeah.
You are?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so then this is a general question. What do all users have to have access then to the rich client? Is that how the apps are delivered, or?
So for your core HR users, yes, it works better there. For self-service employees, managers, no, not necessarily. There's two ways to deploy it. It can either be deployed as a rich client applet within Mingle or the HTML5 interface within Mingle.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.